I'm going to show you how to beat Godrick the Grafted. Not just that, I'm going to show you how to beat him pretty consistently and with a melee weapon. I personally did it with no armor and a club and maybe like 20 vitality, okay? It's totally doable. It's actually really consistent. It took me a long time to hammer it out, but here I got some tips and tricks for you guys, okay? It's actually really doable. And in this case, if you've watched my other videos, in this case, you actually do want to use the targeting system. In other bosses, you don't want to, but in this boss, you actually want to. It actually will make the fight easier, and the main reason for that is there's no cheesing him. There's no running around his sides. He does a really good job of guarding his flanks, so you can't just like cheese and run around him and do stuff like that. So you might as well just lock on for making it easy. And he doesn't do anything where he like super bad jumps out of the screen that you really gotta look around. The only issue, there's 2 times where the targeting lock, you might want to turn it off and back on, but that's only if you really want to go all out. And one quick thing before we get into this. If you're wondering where to find this guy, it's actually right here in the castle. The main story will kind of lead you there with those yellow lines. Have you go to through here, you'll fight Margit. You'll fight your way through the castle. It's like a maze getting through there. And some way, somehow, you'll eventually find your way over to here to fight Godrick the Grafted. Let's just go right into it, guys. I got all sorts of tips and tricks that make this way, way easier. Let's start with stage 1. The first thing you need to know about Godrick the Grafted is whether you're in stage 1 or stage 2, there's a trick that you're always going to want to do, which is when there's downtime and nothing's happening, you want to back off and keep a little bit of distance, but don't go too far. And then just keep on going in and out of his melee range to trigger his attacks, and eventually he'll give you an attack that'll be easy to counter without very much risk involved dealing with it. And before we jump into any of the special attacks, while you're waiting for him to do these attacks, there are a few things you need to know. He may do one where he drops his weapon to the ground and you'll see sparks flying. On that one, really, you either run as fast as you can to get away, or what you really should do is just learn the timing, and here's a funny one, stare at his face once you see him doing this attack. He'll open his mouth as big as he can, and once you see that, give it just like half a second, and then roll straight into his weapon, and hopefully if it goes well and you get the timing right, then you should just go straight through the weapon and you're good to go. The other thing when playing this game is 2 of the attacks will be attacks where he lunges at you. You could run away, but they're actually really easy to hit. Just stare at the actual weapon and you'll see some like white lines or bluish lines, whatever color they are, which means like he's starting his motion. And once you see that, you're pretty much good to roll straight at his face and then get a free hit on him. While doing this in stage 1, the easiest opening is going to be when he uses the wind attack, and you just wait, and he'll run at you, and then you walk to your right, and then just roll when he comes in from the slam, which is pretty easy to get used to. Maybe it'll take you a few tries to get used to. Once you get used to it, it's super easy. And then you roll. If you go to the right and you roll forward to the front right, you'll hopefully end up on his back left and be able to get 2 swings without missing one. After the second swing, you're going to want to just disengage because you don't know for sure what he's going to follow up with. But speaking of follow-ups, there's actually a follow-up he has, which is probably the absolute best follow-up you can get, and you may not realize how good it is. Another thing is you may mistake the lead-up for it as the wind attack, in which case you'll run away, and then it's just, you just let it go, whatever, you lost the opening. But you'll see that there's this attack that you might be terrified of, where he grabs his weapon with both hands and holds it to his right. When he does this, he gives you a long period of time to react to whatever you should do. So at this point, you're either going to run away, mainly because you already thought it was the wind attack and now you're too far away to get back in. Or if you realize fast enough, you can just run back into his back left, which to you is to your front right, and you can basically just let go of the run button and just walk normally at full speed and just keep hugging his left butt cheek. And if you just hang out right there, he'll miss every single swing without you even dodge rolling. Then, once he does 5 swings, because it's a 5-swing attack, after the 5th swing, you can just start beating on him relentlessly and get 3 to 4 hits depending on how you timed it. Afterwards, he'll follow up with any number of moves, the most dangerous one actually being the wind attack, because after the 3 to 4 hits, no matter what attack he does, you're going to want to run away with the actual run button. And then if he's doing a swing and you can't quite get out in time, you'll just dodge at the end and just dodge it normally on your way out. But if he does the wind attack and you don't react immediately, you'll get hit by the first one no matter what. But speaking of the wind attack, I should probably let you know that you can't dodge the wind attack. Your only way to dodge a wind attack is to run away. Although, it's very forgiving. If you get hit by the first one, just immediately roll away and then just run away from him and you'll be okay. The first iteration of it does not do very much damage, so it's very forgiving. If you do get hit by it, just run away. Just roll and run away. And on that same note, after he does the wind attack, there's a small chance if you stay nearby that even when you stay nearby, he may still do this one that he wants to do at long ranges, which he basically plays baseball with a wind attack. And if this happens, you're going to want to walk in one direction, and then after he swings it, you're going to roll the opposite. So if you walk to the left, then right after he throws it, you roll to the right. The thing will go to the left and miss by a mile. And then the same thing when he throws the opposite. Just he'll do one side then the other. When he does the other side, just walk in one direction and then roll in the other. And it should hopefully just fly right past you. Still a really dangerous attack, though. You got to be careful about that. Another thing that he will do randomly is just jump in the air and then slam down, which just practice it. It's really not that hard. Just stare at him, and he'll jump in the air, and you'll see it, and then you just roll straight into him and then smack him, and it's pretty easy. Get one hit, maybe two, and then just start to run away in case he does the wind attack or something that you need to get distance for. And we got one last move in stage 1 that may have you concerned. He'll raise his hammer in the air, and normally if you don't know what you're doing, it's probably best just to run away because he's going to slam the ground twice in a gigantic AoE. But it's actually really easy to dodge once you've seen it a few times. So there are some cues to look at. On the first slam, if you watch and just stare right at his hammer, you'll actually see a bit of motion right before the slam. So you'll stare at it, and then suddenly he'll move a little bit, and then he'll slam. That when he makes that little movement of his hammer, like down or up, I forget which direction, when he moves that just a little bit, it's quickly followed by the fast slam. So right when you see it start to make a twinge and move suddenly, then you just roll. And once you've seen it enough times, you'll get that down. But then you'll notice that he always follows up with the second slam, and that's the one that might get you even worse. Well, there's actually this really OP trick that I realized from fighting him. As long as you're somewhat in front of him, so you can see his arms, or his shoulders even, what will happen is after the first slam, he'll sit there for just a moment, and then you'll see him raise his elbows and lift his shoulders. So during this period of time, just stare at his like biceps, triceps, elbows, shoulders area, and when you see them go up, immediately roll and don't worry about it. Everything will be okay. As long as you do it when you see them come up, the timing's pretty much always perfect, and you will just roll straight into the guy, dodge it with iframes, and then just start beating on him. After that, if you do dodge that, you should be able to get up to 4 swings on him before having to run away with your sprint key. Other than that, for stage 1, it's really about just staying away from him and keeping that distance, coming back in and out until he throws an attack that you can deal with, and then he hopefully will work himself into a combo where you get to hit multiple things in a row, and afterwards just reset, get some distance, and just wait for another opportunity. If you keep that up, you'll get through stage 1 potentially with no damage taken at all. But now let's talk about stage 2. You'll know you're in stage 2 when he suddenly falls down to his knees, and when this happens, you're gonna want to take this opportunity to immediately sprint as fast as you can to his backside. The reason we go to his backside is because something he's about to do can actually hit you. So he's going to cut off his arm. And while he's doing this, you can just relentlessly beat on his back. And you'll just get a bunch of free damage. Depending how good your weapon is, you may get a ton of free damage, actually. Afterwards, there will be a cutscene where he cuts his arm off and does some crazy stuff. And now he has a dragon arm. And at this point, it's actually going to be easier than stage 2 if you know how everything works. The key takeaway from stage 2 is you have to have courage. You cannot run away. No matter what, when he does a fire-breathing attack from that hand, you have to react and run straight to him. If you don't, you're in for some absolute hell because some of those attacks are borderline undodgeable. But if you get in close, you can just beat his ass while he's breathing fire, and it works out really well. So once stage 2 starts, Right off the bat, you are going to run straight at him so you don't even have to dodge the first attack. And just hit him 3, maybe 4 times, and then run away. He'll usually follow with some kind of basic attack to try to hit you afterwards. And then after that, you're going to do the same thing as stage 1. You're going to stay just out of melee range, you're going to walk forward then back, and then until he does an attack that you can do something about. The best case scenarios actually are him breathing fire, which before you watch this video, you may have thought the opposite, but that's actually the best opening in the entire game. A lot of times you can just run in and start beating on him 4 times. So there's a few different attacks he can do. The most basic one is he will breathe from his right to his left. So for you, it'll be on the left of your screen all the way to the right. If you get in for this one, it's super easy. You just run up to his face and just beat on him 4 times and then run away. The attack will be over by that time. Depending on what weapon you have. If you have a club or a one-handed sword or something. If you have a 2-handed or a dagger, you're going to have to figure out the number of attacks you can get for yourself based off the one-handed weapons attack amounts that I've described to you. But then the other attack that you're going to watch out for with the fire is he'll do this one where he breathes fire straight forward and it just chases you with it. If you don't get to him, you will get hit at least 1 time. If you do, however, if you do fail to react, just run away and to the side, and he'll eventually catch you and hit you once, maybe twice with the fire, and it'll do hellacious amounts of damage, so you really don't want that to even happen. If so, you've already almost lost the fight in a sense. So instead, as soon as you see him doing a fire attack, you run in, and for that one, you have to be careful. This one's different. If you stand in front of him, he walks forwards, and the flames will basically cheat. They'll just go in places that don't even make sense. So the only safe thing to do is just run past him, behind him. Maybe go for a swing or 2 if you're feeling dangerous. But he'll actually have flames land on his feet and walk forward through them. And then you can actually get hit, even though you're behind him swinging on him. So I would generally just maybe take a swing if you see a good chance. And mainly just stare at the ground and look for the fire and be careful on this one. The main thing with that one is just getting through it. You don't want to get hit by the fire, and you just want to not... You just don't want to get hit, and you just want to get through that attack. Then he'll eventually, be done with that, and he'll try to attack you, and you go right back to the game of being near him, but not too near, baiting attacks until he goes. The next fire attack that you need to know about is the meteor attack, and this one may be extremely annoying to you because it's hard to see it coming. You feel like you can dodge it, but at the same time you can't, and you can, and you can't. It's super annoying. Well, you don't have to deal with it. If you see him do a twirly attack like a ballerina with fire, and then stand still, as soon as you see him do the spin with the fire, you need to know to run forward. Just go ahead, run straight at him, and then get behind him and swing once or maybe twice, and then run away. All those meteors have to go in front of him, and if you get behind him, you are completely safe. They will not be able to land on you. And while we're on the topic of magic, he has that wind attack from stage 1. He still has that attack, but now it's imbued with fire and it's slightly larger. So generally though, it'll be the exact same thing. If you happen to react to it, you are just gonna run away and give yourself just a little bit more distance than last time. You'll still have to watch out for the baseball wind attacks and do the same thing as before to dodge them, but otherwise he'll do the exact same thing where he runs at you, jumps in the air, you roll into him, and then beat on him. Often he'll follow that up by jumping in the air a second time, in which case you just watch, you roll into him when he lands, and then just beat on him a few more times and then run. Also, during this stage, you might notice that the hammer slam has changed. Now, it's a little bit more difficult to dodge. So just like last time when he goes to do it, honestly, if you don't want to do this the hardcore way, I would just run away from the hammer slam on stage 2 because it takes some practice to get the timing down, even but with the visuals and knowing what to do. So instead, just run away, give yourself a lot of distance, and if you want to, you can turn auto lock off after he does it, and run in and smack his dragon hand 1 time and run away. There'll be an opening for that. If you leave target lock on, it'll make you run into his hand with sword thing, and you won't be able to actually get a swing in on him. But if you want to be super hardcore and you want to just fight into the hammer slam on stage 2, here's what you're going to do. You're going to walk up to it. When you see him do it, just get in front of him and just be like patient. Just kind of stand there and stare at the hammer. And then when you see it start to make some motion, you got to roll. It's going to take that plus just getting used to it and seeing it enough to see the timing. You're going to roll to dodge the first one, and you're almost immediately going to roll to dodge the second one. You'll give yourself like a quarter of a second wait before the second roll, and then just go ahead and roll again. If you roll twice, you'll get hit. So you roll, wait like half a second maybe, and then roll a second time anywhere, and you'll dodge it all. Now he's going to go for the next swing, and you could get a swing or two in while you wait for it, but I generally play it safe, and what I do when he comes for the third swing is I will just rotate around him to try to get into a position where I can see his arm. If you stare at his arm, it's actually an unbelievably slow attack. You can just stare at his hammer and his arm and his hand and just wait for them to start going. And you'll see them go, and you'll have plenty of time to react to them beginning their momentum. And when you see them start coming down, go for the roll, and the timing should be perfect. Afterwards, he takes even longer to recover than stage 1. You'll be able to get 4 to 5 attacks with a one-handed weapon before having to run away to disengage. As long as you're patient and you follow all of the guidelines I have set out in this, it actually should be no problem beating this guy with just a melee weapon. It'll take a little while to get used to some of these attacks, but if you know the patterns and you know what you're looking for, it's actually very consistent to beat him. The main thing is running away and running back in, and running away and running back in until you get him to do something that's easier to deal with. You could just run in and try to dodge his swings and get perfect hits and stuff, but why even bother? You can just be consistent and just run away and come back in until you get a favorable attack pattern, and then go for it and beat his ass, basically. And that's everything I have to tell you about Godrick the Grafted. He's really a game of patience. As long as you're slow and steady, and just like a turtle, slow and steady, wins the race for Godrick the Grafted. You're just going to want to be patient, walk in and out, let him do his attacks, wait for the right moments. And it's a combination of patience and reactions, because certain attacks you have to react on stage 2. You can't run away when you see the fire. You might be able to run behind the statue that's behind my head right now. I never tested that actually, but even that is really dangerous because if you're not in the right position, it's going to be physically impossible. I also wondered if you could use the tombstones to dodge the fire, but in my 2.5 hours of testing, I never actually tried it. Feel free to try it for yourself if you think it's worth death to try. But generally, just follow the tips that I gave you, be patient, slow and steady, and you'll be able to beat Godrick the Grafted, even naked with a one-handed club in this game. Hopefully this guide helped you. I'm trying to make boss guides for all the bosses in Elden Ring. I've already done the horse guide, the sentinel tree, same thing, sentinel tree is the horse boss. And I have done Margaret, the Fell Omen, and now I've done Godrick. And I also did some random boss in a side dungeon, and I plan on doing more and more of these every single day until I've done most of the bosses in the game, mainly just because I actually have fun making these guides, and I hope you guys enjoy them. Hopefully now you have a better idea of how to beat Godrick the Grafted with a one-handed weapon in Elden Ring.